I know it's a necessity for me to go forward.
Okay.
So I've learned that doing nothing is actually doing something.
Okay.
Woo, baby! And welcome back to Mr. Taylor Talks, people. The gentleman next to me is someone I hold truly and dearly to me. We went to middle school together, we went to high school together, and just growing up and seeing the growth in both of us has been great. He's the founder of two very successful companies, Gil Venture being one of them. We've been through a lot, true and true, and it's a pleasure to actually sit here and talk with you and explain the story of like not only mine but your challenges as well of what you've gone through to get to where you are today. So please help me welcome Brandon Gil.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No
it's like we've been talking about doing this for so long.
I know it's good to finally sit down, but our schedules never match up, so
man,
that's one of the hardest things.
And like at one point you've been recording this at different locations, and then to see like the spot that you're in now and doing this is like awesome to see the development within like what you're doing too. So it's like it's awesome, man. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait to see where you're at next when you got me on in a year.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to just be chilling on the beach somewhere with you, just having a good time, man. Like that's the goal, just retiring and having a good time. But yeah, man, just tell the people a little bit about you and like where you originated from, how you got into like everything that you do now and all that.
For sure. So well, I'm from like Miami, Florida, and big baseball culture, and that's what I had grown up doing my whole life, just playing sports. Being involved in baseball. I went away to school for baseball, and that was ultimately my track and what I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life until the end of my career. And once I was in college, I just seen like the different opportunities that were available, and just kind of feeling out what would be best for me. And I decided to not continue playing baseball, and decided to go into the business world. And I was so close-minded and thinking, well, I got to go to get a job, get a corporate job on 9 to 5, etc. Worked a few jobs, got one good corporate job at Discovery Networks. Met somebody there. I was unhappy, and I was like ready to go do my own thing. And she was like, let me introduce you to these two guys, and those are my two, business partners in my first venture to get in. Essentially, just from there, like just got exposed to so much within digital marketing, within building a brand, building a business that, took me to experience and have the encounters that I've had to be where I'm at today. So that's ultimately.
And how would you say that you pretty much got your feet wet in the industry of venturing from that like 9 to 5 type thing and going on your own?
Yeah, definitely. That was my first experience into like the startup world, and like I wasn't even aware of what a startup was, my whole life. I mean, my dad has always been self-employed, but he had not really exposed me to much of what goes into being that kind of person, or into not necessarily being that kind of person, but like the resources that go into it, and like the processes and everything else like that. Working with this startup was really something that I was able to get my hands into and be able to help build and to be able to develop and encounter a lot of problems along the way that would ultimately help me streamline my process into building my agency that I have now.
Awesome, man. And one thing that you said off camera was that you don't feel like you need a pat on the back to tell you that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, no, one of those things, we were talking about, what one of the hardest things were, like going along that path, and, definitely like support is one of them, and not in this, the kind of, like you said, like the back patting kind of support, you don't ultimately need to be told, like, you could do this, to get someone else's approval, as you were saying, to be able to attack this. For me it was just more like wearing a lot of different hats, to be able to get things started up. But didn't really ask for anyone's approval to do so. Just kind of like went on and did it.
Yeah, kind of the same thing that I faced when growing up. A lot of people told me like, no, get the whole 9 to 5 and stick to that. And what a lot of people don't see is the work and the sacrifice that goes behind to get to where we are today. So. I like explaining my story of me working 3 jobs in order to work 1 job for myself. And people don't understand. They're like, how do I work for myself when I have a 9 to 5? Well, after that 9 to 5, get a part-time and use that money for marketing and stuff like that. So
you did it, man.
So like I
it.
like showing the grind and stuff and everything like that gets to it. And it's good to see that you're not from high school. We weren't the only ones that ventured out and did our own things. Hence where I guess the name Gil Ventures comes from, is that whole process of getting to where you are now, and like building businesses. So I know a lot of people would like to know that, like how could you start to build your own business when entering that field? Like how do you feel like you could explain to them how to start that process?
You know, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, especially given like the kind of niche that you want to have within that. Thankfully for this kind of industry, it's really like low barrier to entry in the sense of the kind of capital that you need to start up. So you don't need a lot of like, you don't need an office space, you don't need to pay rent. You know, you don't need really anything but a laptop. Your experience is where was what you really need. You know, actually helping a business grow, making them money. You know, getting your feet wet and just being around a business operationally, or just like finding those things out yourself. That's really all you need. It's just a lot of grit, but just not a lot of cash. So it's like really easy to start up in that sense. And then like finding your niche, finding your opportunity. Like I was telling you beforehand, I originally wanted to be like a marketing company. So I was going out looking for business opportunities in the marketing world, and actually it turned out that the clients that I was like speaking to, they actually needed a website, and that had helped me realize like, well, I guess you can't have one without the other. You need a website before marketing. So I'm gonna go, and I've never developed, never coded anything like that. Decided to just learn how to do it, and started building websites, and then ultimately those clients ended up needing marketing and became like my marketing clients. So
So you pretty much became a one-stop shop to all of them.
yeah, exactly. And now in having the experience, all across the board, I'm able to service clients on all ends, with my team. But that's kind of something like a story that I like to tell, just because like it was an opportunity that I was looking for, but it was an opportunity that I had recognized and allowed me to transition into doing what I'm doing now, and having get those opportunities to like have experience and specialize in those things.
And one thing that I like that you said is that you just started. Yes, it didn't involve a lot of capital, but that's where I feel a lot of people lack, is because they don't just start. They need to have that idea of everything needs to be perfect in order to start. But one thing I learned is if you don't move, nothing's gonna happen. So pretty much like how do you handle your clients, like how do you help them grow and everything, so we could explain that to them, and if there's any business owners out there that want to keep their company going and all that.
Of course, man. I mean, and it really does vary, like business to business, based off like your industry, based off what you're trying to sell, etc. But you know like what I do, it encompasses everything from like digital marketing, so like Google advertising, organic Google advertising, social media marketing, content creation, etc. I also do custom software development, websites, apps, etc. So it ties along all of those things, but then also at the same time, the real niche and me being full service is understanding how to integrate all of those things together to create a money making machine. So it's not necessarily like specializing in one kind of service of like social media, which people are great at social media advertising. But I like to specialize on all of them and focus on all of them, because being able to coordinate all of these components of marketing together to get the kind of result that you're looking for in any given industry, or selling a service or a product. That's my niche. That's where I get the most satisfaction out of what I do.
Awesome, man. And so by going through that, I know you went through a lot of adversities. Which are some of the challenges that you went through in order to get the mindset that you have today?
Definitely wearing a lot of the hats I was telling you about, like the support thing, in the sense of like not having any kind of capital to go and hire a team. Having to do a lot of those things myself, and realizing those things aren't going to get done unless you do it yourself. So it's kind of like you could drown, or you could let yourself drown, or you could learn how to swim like right there, and kind of swim your way out of the mess. And that ultimately is what it was for me, was recognizing problem, finding solution to to go ahead and accomplish and resolve that problem. But when you find a solution and that's not necessarily the answer that's going to solve that problem, not necessarily stopping at that one solution, but then finding 1,000 other solutions, like until something works. So being like a firefighter and like putting out problems and resolving them, more than being a business owner, I guess would be like the biggest adversity, or I guess like the biggest challenge in like what I do.
What are some of the new projects that you're currently working on to grow not only your businesses but other businesses as well?
So one of the projects that I'm working on right now, that's really fascinating to me because I haven't worked on it before. I'm also kind of a nerd. Is that I with my team have been able to figure out a way to quantify anxiety, So what we do is we have, and this is like when working with a doctor, Harvard, trained specialized neurologist, and
Of
basically,
understanding anxiety to rid it of the body.
well, yeah, exactly. Like, what it's yeah, you understand that you have it, so then now, or like you quantify that level of anxiety, so you could say, okay, now the response that you're feeling isn't necessarily something physical and happening within your body, but it's like a mental response. So kind of like separating like physical pain versus like mental response, and then like being able to see if you're doing something to fix it. So kind of being able to continuously test somebody and then using that same baseline and what they had originally scored and seeing if that level gets better.
Yeah, because that's actually something that I realized in myself is anxiety for me is a mental thing. It's something I've talked myself into because I've created my person like that. I truly believe that's me, into the sense of like, okay, when I get anxiety now, it's because one, I am not growing. I'm a person of constant growth, and like when I don't see any progression, I get anxiety. Physicality has to do a little with it for me as well because when I'm lazy or I'm not, working out or doing anything, I feel that sense of anxiety because I do believe that we are energy, and if you don't expert that energy, it tends to build up and you get anxiety like that as well. So I learned to manage it. Now it just derives from like regular things, like I'm excited to do something, like business opportunities, and so it's normal anxiety now. But before it was very challenging and very crippling back in the day of like what's happening to me. So that's awesome that you guys could determine whether it's physical or mental and help them get through that as well.
It's cool, dude. Like honestly, it's like there's such a depth of like statistical analysis and like other things that like we test and like could like recognize within a patient when they go through this test. But like one of like the most captivating things about it is being like the first actually to be able like to quantify anxiety, and also having like a patent on that as well, to be able to bring this system to the world in different medical offices and hospitals and everything else like that. So then like that's what I would say is like the most exciting thing about it. Was pretty passionate about it just because I also from time to time, I mean, obviously I get anxious as well, and like the nature of what I do, I also feel like when I'm doing nothing, I'm not productive, and I develop like an anxiety from that, and
which I think is evolution, where our nature is to grow, and when we're not growing and evolving, you get
And I completely agree with that. But then my dad actually gave me some awesome perspective in the sense of that could drive you, but that could also kill you because you always want to go, but when do you rest?
Relax.
When do you relax? When do you charge yourself up to go 100% the next time? If you're going 100% all the time, are you really able to go 100%? And that's one of those things that you force yourself to relax, which probably gives you more anxiety because you're forcing yourself to just like chill out.
And I sit with that so much because I haven't played video games in 7 years, right? Recently, I've learned to calm down because I know it's a necessity for me to go forward. Okay. So I've learned that doing nothing is actually doing something. Okay. If that makes sense. Totally. So what I've learned is right now I need to hold the brakes and everything and be calm and patient for the business to grow. So by doing nothing, I'm actually doing something. And I had to treat myself because I was the type of person that go. I'll relax when everything's done. Yeah. But at the same time, what I do every day now is I make sure I do the most efficient I can. I don't stop working. I work probably about 10 to 12 hours a day. Okay. I don't feel stressed because I know it's part of my progression. So the stress isn't there. Right. But then it's like, okay, you need to treat yourself too. Yeah. Take the time out. But what I got to tell a lot of people is if you're nowhere near or if you haven't started yet, you ain't got time for breaks.
Yeah, like what are you taking a break?
Exactly. Like I understand our situation where we've earned our breaks and our, our time. But if you're not where you want to be and you're in that 9 to 5 and you work 6 hours, 8 hours and you're like, oh, I need to go home and de-stress. Yeah. You will never get to where you want to be because you're not putting in those extra hours. You get what I'm saying? Absolutely. And as entrepreneurs, we need to learn when to have that balance of take your time, take your mental break, take your mental space. So one thing I like to do in the morning is I don't touch my phone for the first hour. And I feel that helps clear my mind and gives me the energy to tackle on the day.
For sure.
Because I come in a sense of clarity of like what do I need to accomplish, not what the world wants me to accomplish.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I've learned
more
that
people should do that.
Yeah, so I've learned that's helped me be very efficient throughout my day. Like I will sit here for 8 hours and do all the work and editing I need, but then I have clients I have to take care of. And I'm very good at balancing that, but it's like I've learned to enjoy video games now because I saw them as a hindrance in my growth.
Yeah.
Because I understand this is me distressing time.
For sure.
And getting my woes throughout the day off of me and everything like that. And I feel that adds to my energy and everything. So
cool.
I think more people entrepreneurs should take the time to spoil themselves and everything as well. So I agree with what you said.
Go ahead.
Go
Not
ahead.
to cut you off, but I actually had gone to an event one time, and I'm not really too big about going to like marketing events, networking. Well, networking events one thing, but anyways, they had told me that, or they had communicated the message that if you don't spoil yourself, like what are you doing it for? If you give yourself that taste of being spoiled and reward, and you're like,
Okay,
yeah, I
this
like
is what
this.
I'm
I'm
doing.
hungry. I want to do this more. So how do I do this more? Make more money, or like put yourself in a position to where you feel like you're able to take in that reward because you've worked hard enough to do so. Like that is something that is crucial to people, and by being a masochist and just forcing yourself to go through it and not reward yourself, ultimately does set you back and not allow you to get you to where you want to be.
So that wise words from your father.
Yeah.
Very wise words from your father. But at the same time, I do believe, yes, rewarding thyself, but being in the service of others is good. And as you know, Mike Fercare, which is one of my business mentors, I believe, he says the worst day of his life is when he bought his dream car.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, okay, if we're doing all this for, what are we doing it for? Yeah. And I really sat with myself and I saw, okay, if you chase material things, there's an end point. And then what are you really chasing after that?
Exactly. Like, where's the ultimate satisfaction?
So I learned the way to get endurance and keep going and have that motivation is in the service of others, of where like you can never help enough people.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. Yet you get fulfillment out of it because you're doing something.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're never going to help everybody in the world, which is a constant recycle of what you could do, but also help yourself. And one thing that I've been big on lately is live selfishly to serve selflessly. Okay. And I've been big on that, and a lot of people are thinking like, oh no, you're an asshole for it. And I'm like, no, but you got to understand, if I can't take care of me, how am I going to take care of you?
Well, that's complete like principle ruled back. I mean, like your basic, take care of yourself before you're able to take care of others. Like when you're in an airplane and they, show you how to put the gas mask on your child and the person next to you, it's like, well, no, make sure you put it on yours first and then you put it on everybody else. And like, that's something that like people don't recognize, and I don't know why it has like a negative connotation that like you can't take care of yourself or something if you're going to be helping others. But, ultimately if you don't put yourself in that position, I mean, how are you going to be able to help others?
Exactly.
Like 100% agree with you.
So one thing I do like to ask a lot of people when I interview them is, what is your definition of success? Because I truly believe that determines the person you are.
Yeah. Legacy is huge to me, and that's in big parts why I have my name on my business, but that's also because I'm really proud of the adversity that I've come over and to get where I'm at, I would say I want to be able to die and have my name be remembered, for a lot of positive things and a lot of positive impacts that I've made. And so I guess that's something that I don't know until I die. But, at the same time, you have a good understanding of whether you made an impact or not when you're, about to do so. But I would say, like, the biggest thing to me is legacy. So if I'm able to leave my legacy and know that, I'll be able to set, like, an example or an ongoing process that positively impacts the world and leave, like, my footprint in doing that, that to me is my ultimate success.
Yeah. And I like what you said, an ongoing process, because one of my goals is not to change the world, it's to shift the world in the right direction. With personal growth and development, mental awareness, positivity, happiness, love, joy, and abundance, and all that.
If anything, also like Apple is still innovating. Like even though Steve Jobs has died, they have like a constant thing that puts out innovation and science and technology into the world. So he didn't just changed the world while he was here. He literally had shifted every thing about the way we do things with technology and the way that we look at technology. So yeah, you want to talk about like legacy and just like in one of the particular things that he had set out to do. I mean, yeah, that's something that even after he died.
Yeah,
just
and
still
I
going on.
truly believe that you're leaving a legacy behind as well, because you're not only making money for you to provide for you and your family, but you're changing these businesses, giving them different opportunities so they could provide for their family, their friends,
Absolutely.
and whatever. And it goes bigger than just you. That's why I truly feel like my hair industry is something more than just hair, because a haircut could change the life of someone, which then feels the energy and the positivity to go do it to someone else. And I find that very beautiful when businesses do that, and it's a great thing when it goes way beyond than just what your service is or your product is or anything like that. But before we get out of here, man, like, what is something that you want to leave to everyone, like a message or anything like that?
Nothing. Just be happy in what you do. If you're not happy in what you do, what are you doing it for? Get out.
Yeah.
Bye. That's it. Done.
Simple, man. I
Yeah.
like that. Thank you very much, man. You could check Brandon Gil out on his Instagram at Brandon Gil 11. That's Brandon Gil with one L. And thank you so much for coming, man. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Honestly, I wish we could do this more frequently. It kind of
Yeah,
sucks.
man.
When can I come back on again?
We got to set up a
man.
date, man,
Yeah,
when
for
our
sure.
schedules align and everything. But
Yeah, I'm excited. Man.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having me
man.
so much. I appreciate it. Good talks, man.
And with that, I always leave you guys with self-love, self-care, self-preservation, and I love you.